Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Season 1, Episode 7. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So this episode did not go down the way I thought it would. The moment I saw the episode title, like Infidelity, I was like, ooh. It's like, what is that going to mean? Is it going to be literal infidelity? Is it going to be like, oh, because they had the whole conversation last episode with their therapist about, oh, like, why don't you kind of do separate jobs for a while? So I was like, is this what they're going to do? And is it kind of like oh, you kind of went off and did a job without me? That's where the infidelity of it. Because when she rolled up on Bev, I thought like, oh, is this her doing a solo job? It's like, no, it's her confronting Bev, who's played by Michaela Cole. Which is interesting when you think about like an MCU connection. She was in Wakanda Forever, and obviously Donald Glover played essentially Aaron, aka Prowler, aka like Miles' uncle in the in Spider-Man: Homecoming. But anyway, Jane confronting her, gun on her, and everything. It's like no. Hold the cups of tea while we're talking, which I'm like, kind of actually makes sense why you would do that. Because even later on, she's like, just put your hands on your lap or your legs later on when she drops it. But it makes sense because it's like, right, with her hands preoccupied, there's no chance of her trying to fight back and like immediately. Like there's at least some time you'll be able to react to it. She just suddenly tries to throw it. Like you'll be able to get like, attack her quickly if it comes down to it. But she starts talking about like, okay, she's having, it's like, I was, like I said, I didn't know where this episode was going, so immediately she's like, okay, like, how long have you been seeing my husband? I was like, is she going to confuse you for someone else? But then they start talking about John. I'm like, is it actually going to be the same John? Because we know there's other Johns running around, so it could be a Jane, but it's like, he got into some of the specifics about his gripes about Jane. We heard those last episode, so her bringing some of those up, it's like, oh, that she can be kind, but she isn't really friendly. And he didn't think they would be compatible personality-wise at the beginning. So it's just... And it's gotta suck you're hearing all this from the other woman. That he, like, comes, hangs out with you, smokes, watch movies. Have you two had sex? It's like, no, we haven't had sex. I'm like, is that the truth? Because, I mean... I even love later on, she's like, hey, okay, we're not friends. And it's like, I'm only talking to you and we're having this cordial conversation because you've got a gun pointed at me. And Jane's almost like, yeah, I know. Because I was scared the entire time. I'm like, please don't mess around. Because I'm like, she's got trigger discipline. Because if you notice, like, her finger is never on the trigger. Her finger is on the side of the gun. So she's got good trigger discipline. But I'm still kind of like, anytime she's kind of waving a gun, I'm like, but I'm like, hey, you're a professional. But still, professionals can make mistakes sometimes. So I was so... legitimately, I was kind of almost a little concerned. It's not the same thing, but it almost kind of made me go like, please don't end up being a Pulp Fiction. Please don't Phil Lamar her, which I'm like, what was Phil Lamar's character's name? Was it Marv? Or was it Martin or Marv or something like that? It's been a long time since I've seen Pulp Fiction. But it's like, at least like don't let her have a similar situation to Phil Lamar is all I was kind of getting to in that regard. But I was like, where is this gonna go? She's finding all this stuff about John. Like I said, it's kind of heartbreaking. It's like, yeah, they've had their issues, and now it's like, oh, you're cheating on me, and this and that. And it's like, oh, that's John. Don't tell him I'm here or I'm going to kill you. I'm like, that's why I was still being like, is it actually going to be your John? Maybe it's not. But it ends up being her John. And also the casualness of he went to the kitchen. He opened like the drawer to the fridge. Like, you're like, oh, he spent enough time here to know where things are. So that makes you go like, oh, he's definitely spent a lot of time here. Because what I thought was so interesting, though, is because we saw Jane at the computer at the beginning of the episode, so I was like, right, so they had to have told you about this, right? Because that's where I initially thought this was like her solo mission. I was like, okay, obviously you were on a computer, you immediately came to Beth's place, so I thought this was about your one hit, you were doing your own hit, but then that kind of got sidetracked from my mind, the company angle of it, the moment it turns out like, oh, it turned into an affair situation. I was like, wait, where is this going? Obviously we'll circle back to the company side of things later, but they're just chillaxing, like, he's doing this whole thing where it's like, oh, he's got this popsicle, he's like telling her to come here, and he's like rubbing her, he's like, oh, I like this top. I was like, oh god, this is terrible. And then like when they're laying on a couch watching movies, he's got her legs in his lap, he's telling her a pun and everything, and then he like sits up and he's like, so, where's my wife? I was like, what? And I was like, wait, what's going on here? And then it pops off and turns into a fight. And Jane's standing there like, wait, what the fuck is going on? And she's like, Jane, like, and tries to shoot at her. She comes out with the barbed wire. That's some neat tech where it's like, oh, you've seen it in other things have kind of utilized it. God, there was something, I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was something live action that used a similar device to that basically it tightens until basically you suffocate because it cuts off the circulation in your neck. Like hers was kind of interesting because basically it's connected to a thing in the back that's constantly it's kind of almost like rolling it and making it tighter and tighter. There's been versions of something similar I've seen in something else and I just can't remember what it was off the top of my head. I was like, and you could see it later on, like because obviously he's bleeding a little bit. It's like it's digging into his skin. He's in the damn kitchen looking for stuff while Jane and Bev are fighting, and he finds something but he drops it and just Jane was caught between going after Bev and going saving John. It's like I guess in the grand scheme of things, it kind of makes sense why you would second guess that because they didn't talk about it, but it's like all they said last episode was, yeah, our boss was not too happy about the hunter we were supposed to go after and that job turning into the shit show that was. It was like, once again, yeah, that was their second fail. And that also answered my question of, yeah, we need one more fail and we're done. It's like, yep, they never give you a grace period restart of like, oh yeah, after a while the fails like reset. It's like, no. You get in your entire career, apparently you get 3. You fuck up 3 times across the board. There's no like, once again, I don't know if you can redeem the fails or not, do anything special to redeem it. I have no idea. Who knows what the guidelines are on that? That was a whole conversation I had last episode about all that. But either way, they're chasing after her. There's a tracker on her. And it's like, okay, cool. But now it's just kind of like, all right, a lot of the... I can't remember if they got into those arguments at all. No, they it's like, oh yeah, I pretended to give her a massage and I put the tracker on her. It's like, okay, good. And then it like doing the whole train sequence situation, which I thought was dope. And I love the classic thing of like, oh, let me hop off the train and just before the doors close, let me hop back on and you try to hop back on it. The smart thing would have been at least have one of you stay on the train. It would, I mean, you're a duo. She's one person, you're 2, but you got to stick together because it makes it easier. Plus, both of your asses are on the line with this. So now it's the whole situation of like, okay, so because it turns out he got this mission like a month ago and this job should have only been like 3 days. Obviously, we've seen Jade can be very impatient. Ergo, the first part of the therapy episode, that Jane can get impatient. But it's like, yeah, a month is a long time, and you got closer because even Jane's like, you told her everything, like what she talked to me about. Like it sounds like you told her a lot about me. It's like, yeah, he opened up to her because there's very few people he can talk to about everything. We tried the therapy thing, but even then, I kind of had to like. We had to mix up details. We couldn't get too specific about stuff. We can talk in generalities without going into specifics about what we actually do, because it turns out she's actually a rival spy, so that makes it even more. It's kind of like the John and Jane from episode 4 without having the complicated thing of, oh, this being a couple, this just being someone I can confide in about everything, someone that's cool, like and Jane calls it out. It's like, yeah, you might not have had sex with her, but it was still an emotional affair. Because it's like, yeah, the spy game is we hook up with people, we do what we need to, we can Black Widow this shit if we need to, because that's just what it is. That's part of the spy game. But because it turns out Jane said like, oh yeah, she slept with 2 people, which I'm like, did she actually do that? Because we know Jane's a really good liar. I could easily see her saying that just to screw with him, just because it's like. Because he kissed her, but it's like, kissing's not that big of a deal. He tried to have sex with her, which that's also the complicated thing, because it's like, okay, when you tried to have sex with her, was that part of the job, or was that you just legitimately falling for her type of situation? I mean, that's also the problem, that spycraft stuff of like, I mean, I think the same thing could even be said with like actors and stuff. It's like, yeah, you play romantic unless there's like nothing really there. If you play romantical with someone else, I'm feeling all romantical and stuff. If you play into the romance a little too much, get caught up in it, that obviously we've seen time and time again. You hear time and time again about, actors who got together on the set of movies or TV shows because what happened on screen started like happening in real life too. So, it's that type of situation. And it's like, he kind of fell for her. So it became that thing of how much of this is even a job anymore. I mean, it did take a month because he enjoyed it. It felt nice in his mind that to be with someone that he believes didn't make him feel like shit. But it's still a sucky thing of you're getting it's still cheating because you're getting that fulfillment in some other shape or form. I'm not here to weigh the sins of like, oh, it's emotional cheating. Is it worse or is it slightly better than physical cheating? Cheating is cheating. And once again, that also varies from person to person because everyone's got their scales of like how much they're willing to tolerate and forgive and how much they're not. So it is that complicated thing of like, on some levels you can understand John's defense of like, how is my situation different from yours, James, when you talked about the fact is you slept with people. He even was like, well, was it good? And she's like, no, it's not even about good, it's about the job. But he's like, then why is your situation different? She's like, it is completely different because it's like, right, Jane is very efficient with her jobs. Anyone she probably had to screw those 2 times, if they really did happen, she probably did it boom boom and then kill the person, like she was supposed to. She didn't get emotionally attached to them and string out what was supposed to be a 3-day job potentially into a long month emotional affair of like you leaving and hanging out with her. Like that's it. Yeah, it's especially because because I was about to say like who knows how long it's been since episode 6, so it's probably been like maybe a couple months. So how much of that time in between episode 6 and episode 7 did this whole job start? Because once again, that started because they were going to take solo missions. We have no idea how many they've taken in the time frame. Is this the only one that John has taken in all that time? Has Jane been taking any? Like, have they done any missions together at all since together at least since their therapy session last episode? I'm so many questions on that part. I love when they went to that food mart or whatever, and the guy behind the counter, the clerk, I was like, is that fucking Dave Attell? Had a look. I was like, yeah, it is. I was like, I knew it. I was like, that's insane. I also love the whole bit of like, okay, yeah, can I charge here? It's like, no, I don't want to get a virus. It's like, no, that's not how that works. He's like, he's like, has it ever happened before? He's like, no, not yet. He's like, but he's like trying to prevent it from happening. It's like, that's such a weird thing. Like, yeah, don't charge your phone here because I don't want to catch a virus, even though that isn't how that would work, but still. So I love how Jane went about it. Like, when she was starting to get stuff, I thought that, this is stupid me, I was like, oh, is she buying time so that he can take the charger and immediately charge it? Like, what's going on there? But it's like, oh, I don't have the money to pay for all this. Oh, all the cash she has is here. I guess we're going to have to wait for his phone to charge. I was like, oh, that's where we're going. Because she did buy Band-Aids and stuff, and it turns out, it was really sweet. I even love that he tried to make he made a reference to something. I don't remember what it was. He said something and Jane just kind of completely ignored him. And it's like, all right, you've been sick the entire time. Here, drink some fluids and drink a little bit. She's like, I don't want to drink anymore. Or I'm going to get nauseous if I drink any more, like get any more fluids in me. So phone cut back on. They chase after her some more. They find the place that they're getting her, where she's potentially at. I love that they had to pay for napkins, 5 cents a napkin. And then we have to go back to the conversation of like, right, you had an emotional affair, you did what you did, and it's that sucky thing where you're just like, man, there's this. I mean, that's any relationship. You see the good, there's bad, and then there's the ugly. And they're kind of in the ugly phase of their relationship. You're hopeful that maybe they can turn this all around, but it's just been compounding more and more with every passing episode. And it's just like, they've managed to swing back around from any negative stuff. But, like, I feel like episode 4 feels like that was the real, like, boom, like, episode 5, yeah, but like it just feels like episode 4 was the turning point for the relationship in a lot of way, and then like you kind of continue at 5, then you continue it even more into 6, and now into 7. It's just it's kind of neat. Just like the first half of the season is all about building a relationship up, and the back half of the season is about tearing the relationship down. Then they end up going to the place they're tracking her down, and it turns out, hey, this is the restaurant from our first mission when they were tracking the sandwich lady. It's like, why would she come here? Then once again, I'll let you know where my mindset is. I was like, wait, could this all be a trap? Like in the trap in the sense that John set this whole thing up and it's not really what you think it is. But it's like, no, that doesn't make any sense, because for one, Hi contacted Jane, so it of course wouldn't make any sense for Hi to be on board. So I thought this whole thing might have been orchestrated for a second. Once again, it's just for a split second my mind went there, but it's like, nah, it's all real. Bev left them a message and peaced out, so she's gone. And now they've got another fail, so they make their way back home. And just this little moment was like, oh yeah, there's like basically at the zoo there's a hippo that their sister is pregnant, and so it was kind of a surprise pregnancy. It's like, why are you getting a news alert about that? He's like, I don't know, because it's like, what? She's like, what is up with your algorithm? He's like, I like hippos. It's like, yeah, I guess it just showcases, like, right, there's just stuff we don't know about each other that it's like, yeah. She was like, why would you even get that? It's like, because I like hippos. Did you ever tell her you like hippos? It's just, I think it's just supposed to be indicative of this situation where she feels like shit. They're both feeling like shit because it's a shitty situation. But then it's also like, even in this moment, I'm learning stuff about you. But maybe it's like, kind of like, oh, where our relationship is spiraling out of control and now I'm learning stuff about you. It's like, shouldn't this be happening in the beginning rather than, it's like, it's a complicated thing because you were two mismatched people that were put together. Don't fully know the reasons why. Maybe you're compatible in other ways and complement each other in certain ways that, has made you work it well as a team, but has also made you clash like you have now. For maybe like a psychological profile on them said that they would be a good match. Maybe that's how the company decides. Either way, they're going home and John wants to make her some soup, but hot neighbor already made her some, which he immediately tosses in the trash the moment they get there, and he's cooking it, and he's talking to his mom while he's preparing it, which his mom is actually played by his actual mom, which I was like, the moment I looked at the IMDb, this is just IMDb on the X-ray feature of like the Fire Stick. I don't know if like she actually has any other like IMDb credits. I haven't actually looked on proper IMDb, but that's the only thing that popped up. So I'm like, is this the only time she's ever popped up as his mom? Has she never popped up in anything else he's done? Either way, I was like, that's super cute getting your mom to actually play your mom. He probably legitimately for that scene, because they are FaceTiming, so it's like, yeah, he legitimately just FaceTime his mom. I'm like, there's something adorable about that, I was wondering because I was like, because it was just a voice at first. I was like, who are they going to get to play his mom? I wonder if there's going to be an actress I'm familiar with. I was like, no, it's just his mom. Like I said, there's something sweet about that, especially considering like all the stuff in the show about like, him kind of being a mama's boy or whatever, for him to actually have there's something to that. I'm sure that was kind of done on purpose to some extent. And it's like, you probably also want to include like, once again, I talked about it before. He already like works and writes with his brother, so I'm like, you're probably thinking like, my mom's very special to me, so I'm gonna put her in something I'm working on. I found something perfect for her to do. She doesn't even have to be on set. I could just like FaceTime this, and we're having a cooking session and stuff, and she's telling me what to make. Put some cayenne peppers because it helps with a cold, and he brings the food to Jane. But then like they start talking, and it's like, she's like, just go ahead and tell Hi we failed, because he already knows, because he's the one that told me to go to Bev's place. But then John's like, what? Why would he do? Because that's why I came back and knew immediately that you were at Bev's place, because Hi told me. So why would he do that? And you're like, are we setting this up to be kind of like the original Mr. and Mrs. Smith, where they were set up to kill each other type of situation? I wonder, but it's like, that's quite the rigmarole. Or was Hi hoping that Bev would kill them both? Part of me wonders, like, is Bev even from a rival company? Is she from the same company as them? And it's just that. Because she is British, so it's probably like I don't know if that's supposed to imply like they said she's from a rival company. So I'm like. Because once again, like they've said CIA, but they don't know for sure that this is the CIA. So I'm like, I don't know if that's supposed to be implying that she works for like, God, I always forget which one. It's like MI6 is Is it because there is an MI? There are different MIs. I don't know what they all do, but MI6 is the CIA. I think. I believe it is. Not unless it's MI5. That's the British equivalency to the CIA. I don't know. I want to say it's MI6, but I could be mistaken. Not unless that's supposed to be that, but it's like, because she actually belonged to the quote-unquote CIA, or like I said, at least the company they worked for, and that whole thing was a setup. But why? Why go through all of that? Were they hoping that Jane would kill her, and then John would get there and then turn to an ugly situation and have them kill themselves? But they haven't failed a third time yet. Not unless they are on their third fail like they thought they are, and they're actually further. Because once again, they're keeping stuff secret, like, oh, John and his mom. It's like, well, the CIA or the company probably already knows about that, but they're just letting it slide, or what? Because it seems like they know everything else. So it's like they knew, like, why would they set that whole situation up if not, once again, to, like, potentially have you kill each other? But why? Especially because they were pushing for Jane to move up. I was like, it feels like maybe they've been purposely testing the waters of the boundaries of all of this to see, like, all right, to see what you're really made of. Maybe this is the test to see if you're ready to go to the next level. Is putting some pressure on you by being like, all right, let's cause some dysfunction and see whether you bounce back or not, or whether you rise to the challenge, or, you know, or whether you, like, crumble. And I think there was this element of, you know, obviously John's just done. It's like, all right, you know what? There, it's done. We've got our third fail. Await further instruction. And, you know, Jane sits there and eats the soup, and she's like, oh, it's actually good. And it's like she doesn't even know that he made the soup for her. She probably still thinks it's hot neighbor soup. And just for John, it's just like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to leave in the morning, Jane. I can't do this anymore. And just leaves. And in that moment, it's just kind of like, wait, what? Like, I know we're having issues, but for you to, like, leave like that, it's just kind of fucked. So she ends up smashing the computer. It's just, yeah. And then the episode ends. I was like, wow, that felt short. I was like, oh yeah, because the episode was like, at that point it's like, what, 36 minutes? And I was like, wow, that is a short episode. But then we get a little bit of a, like, 1 or 2 minute post-credit scene, well, mid-credit scene, and it's like, oh, she gets a delivery. It's the first time we've seen the other side of the delivery to some extent. And she opens it up. I'm like, what's going to be in there? It's a new laptop. And she's looking around like, yeah, she just broke it last night. I mean, who knows? Like, might not even been just last night. Might have been definitely some hours ago she broke it, and they've already shipped out a new laptop and gave it to her. And she's looking around like, okay. Because that might be diving back to episode 4. Because remember, the other Jane was like, oh yeah, like, have you ever used the cameras to spy on people? She's like, oh yeah, it's kind of fun. So it's like, probably never crossed their mind that, like, this place is probably bugged. Or they've got cameras and stuff everywhere. But there's also, you know, for them to specifically know to give her a laptop means they've got cameras inside that place, microphones and stuff like that. Ironically enough, they burned down their therapist's place last episode because of the cameras and microphones. But I've still got my money on, because it's all, once again, it's such specific casting. It's like, it's felt like, I don't know, because no one, like, some of the other characters have obviously been, well, John Turturro's character's dead. They ran into his ex, was it Rainey, who, or is it Rooney? I didn't talk about it at the time, is, I think, best known from, like, Money Heist, which I haven't seen it, but that's, I think, the thing she's kind of best known for. So I was like, you know, so there's that. And a lot of those castings are like, yeah, they're just, like, one-off episode things, but he's the only one that's kind of popped up. It's, for once again, it's Paul Dano, and he's the only one that's popped up multiple times, because he popped up in episode 2 and 4, but he also was kind of referenced in this episode. So I'm like, there's definitely got to be more behind that. I mean, just like, once again, because he's been on camera with dialogue once, and then, like, the other time he was on camera, it was a distance, and John was just watching him and Jane talk. So I'm like, there has to be more than that. Like, from the beginning, I was like, he's got to be, like, their handler or something. I don't know if he's necessarily Mr. Hi, but maybe he's just, like, the person's meant to keep a watch on them. Like, it felt so off his first introduction. I'm like, that's been in the back of my mind, but, like, he hasn't been sprinkled in. So not unless we get, like, a large bit of him in the next episode or not. Because the next episode's the season finale, so I have no idea. how this is all going to play out, where this is going to go. It's definitely going to be interesting. I don't know if these kooky kids are going to make it. I think they are. But what the circumstances are going to be, how this all plays out, what this has all been about, what happens now that they failed 3 times, John's kind of gone, and what happens here. I'm very, very excited to see where the season finale ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.